Hi, welcome to K Martinix Makes. Here in the workshop today we're going to talk about the final part of the router table build that I've been working on from some Woodsmith plans. If you are interested, you can look up part 1, which goes over basically the carcass build and the shelves. Part 2, which goes over this laminated plywood top with a piece of plastic laminate attached on top of it. And then today we're going to be going over part 3, which is installing the top, the router plate, and building this fence that goes on top of it. So let's get started.
All right, so what I am going to do is I have marked the slots for routing out a space to place bolts that will hold the fence, and it will essentially look something like this. This will attach via bolts that go through the slots, and that will give me a movable fence that can sit on top of this surface. And to do this, I have a plunge router with an edge guide, and I will plunge in and use the edge guide for a straight line on both sides. All right, well, that worked pretty well. The edge guide did its job. The router can only go halfway deep though, so I'm gonna flip this over and get the rest from the other side. All right, the top is installed, screwed in from the bottom. The screws were placed in pre-drilled holes up through this cleat. I did struggle. The plans called for installing this chip tray now. At the beginning of this carcass build. The trouble though is I really struggled getting a drill to fit up into here. So I ended up just removing this tray, installing these screws, and then replacing this tray. If I were to do it again, I probably would have just waited entirely on putting this chip tray in. The next step, getting my leveling screws all set so that I can drop my router lift right in there, and then we'll see what it's like. All right, so I just got through with my first test use of the old router table. I need to come up with a good name for this thing. And so it worked amazing. I picked a scrap piece of 2x4, used a roundover bit, easily just ran it right across there, made a super even, nice, comfortable to use pass. Working great, super excited. Now all I need left to do is finish building the fence, and that'll come next. The fence is a double boarded construction of 2 pieces of hard maple, and there are these adjustment knobs here that let you adjust it and then move it back and forth in these slides. And then these knobs right here will let you remove this front piece, and that way you can swap in alternative faces if you want to make custom jigs or other various attachments. You don't need to build a whole new fence for that. I mentioned in previous videos that I use the O-School router lift, which I'll link to in the description, but it comes with a pretty handy tool that lets you raise and lower and then lock this, and then there are some tools that let you remove this cover plate and swap out your bits.